beats for your Mega Chad Sigma freestyles. Hey, Daddy Gerbster. Dirk 30. Alright, let's go. Look, yeah. Gerb, Ferb, Phineas and Ferb. Look, I'm looking nice. I wanna go on a date with Ice Spice. Yeah, get some shrimp fried rice. When I take her out to lunch, but I'm not a munch. But I'm not a munch. Saw two gays fight, I called that a fruit punch. Gerby. I don't think y'all are really hearing the lyricism, bro. Take her out to lunch, but I'm not a munch. I spice munch and lunch because you munch at lunch. And then saw two gay guys fight. I call that a fruit punch. If I was black, that would be crazy. No, if I was black, I'd really start rapping for real. But I'm not, so I guess I'll just start a business or do something else. Sorry. That's actually racist. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. You probably see my flags back there. I don't know. It just represents it represents that I can agree with everybody. This is the ability I was given, is to agree with anyone and everyone to survive. So, however you feel about them, I agree. It's just a piece of art. I don't even know what they are. They're just cool designs. I was like, what are these cool designs? I was at the flag store. So, yep. But that's not what this is about. How y'all doing? I'm doing pretty good. What am I doing? This is about a question. It's a question I've been asked like 1,700 times. If I were to look up the keywords on my email that say missing out or that say high school missing, like these kind of keywords, it would just be like a lot of them. All pretty much saying the same thing, a very common theme that I resonate with as well, which is pretty much just like you go through high school, your teenage years, and you miss out on, you don't experience certain things that would be considered social milestones or like normal things that would happen that would be crucial for your development. And now you're looking back, you have this fear of missing out, and you have this sort of void, and it makes you feel discouraged. Just going forward, knowing you can't get that time back. And this is just something I wanted to talk about because I have a feeling it will resonate with a lot of people. You don't really have to be clairvoyant to see these social trends now. They're getting so large to where it's not just like goblins that know about anymore. These are topics that everybody's talking about, getting beaten to death, but I think I have some sort of insight. It's still growing, so whatever. Here's the thing about high school. If you're a late bloomer like me, I'm just like, my facial hair is just starting to grow faster. I'm starting to gain weight. I'm like hitting puberty at 20 years old right now. In high school, I was just a little munchkin, like 5 feet tall, 80-something pounds probably when I went into high school. Real ones know about this already. But when you're a late bloomer like me, like every day of high school, I always thought it was a nightmare. I was just like, the sooner I get over with this, the better. And I remember talking to my brother about it, and he said that I probably said something about how I can't wait to be done with school, and he's like, no, when I graduated, I was really sad. And at the time, that was unfathomable to me. I was like, sad? What? This sucks. I want to be gone as soon as possible. It's like you're in a race. This is what high school was like. It's like you're in a race. If you ever done cross country or something like that, I think I did that in middle school, but you're running, you're running out of stamina, you're wheezing, your legs are hurting, you're just like, I just want this to be over with. So you reach so you think about reaching the finish line, and then you'll be so relieved. You'll get, a Capri Sun, and someone's hot mom will be handing out Nutri-Grain bars, and you'll just be chilling with your friends at the end. It'll be great. And this is what high school was like. I was just picturing it like just get through it. Just keep on running. Keep your head down. This is what I did every day. I would just go to school, do the minimum work required, do a lot of my homework in school right when I get home, shut my brain off with media, jacking off constantly, video games, everything. So, I didn't consider... it's not like I was a complete, quiet kid, no friends or whatever. But I just, never really got super into the social events, never went to the games, never played a lot of sports, right? And I just kept my head down, just get through it. But then you get to the end of this race, you expect to break this ribbon and everything be good. But that's not what happens. You get to the end of the race, and it's like some guy just clotheslines you. You just get elbowed in the face right when you reach the finish line, get laid on your back, and when you get back up, everything's gone. There's no people there. You're just in an empty field by yourself. And you look back and you realize this whole time you were in this place you thought was a nightmare, in this place you thought you wanted to escape. This was like a very unique and important social opportunity that will never present itself in your life again. And now it's over. There's no getting it back. There's nothing like that. And you might even start to doubt yourself. You might even start to think about how missing out on these certain milestones mess up your future as well. Not hitting these things so you can have a natural progression with your ability to make connections, to or missing out on fun or have relationships, things like this. And I know this is a sentiment that's echoed by a lot of people. And it is brutal, but it's okay. And this is what the message of this video is. I'm pretty late into it. I take forever to get to a point, huh? But the point is this. Yes, it's brutal, but it's okay, because what you have to understand is that your whole comparative framework for what is normal, for what these milestones are that are average or what should be, are not yet adjusted to Generation Z, and your perspective is warped. Number one, by time. You're as a Generation Z person, you're comparing yourself, like the standards for a normal school experience are sort of still based off boomers and kind of millennials, the kids of the boomers, the larger population groups. These are naturally what will determine our culture and what we think is normal. And the stories you're going to be hearing are these large population groups that are going to raise this generation. Same thing with Gen X. The thing with Gen X is like some of them are like millennials, some of them are like boomers. It just depends on like who you talk to. They're a smaller group, but these are what you're hearing, and it's just totally different now. Most people don't date in high school now. This is true anecdotally, in my experience, but it's also true statistically, empirically. You might have seen the chart. The percentage of high schools ever dated, you just see it plummet to a minority. So your whole comparative framework on what is normal, on what like a normal social fun high school experience is like, is just incorrect. And this is what's causing you the pain. It's really not a super profound or new take, comparison being the thief of joy. But I think it's something to point out when talking about this issue that a lot of people seem to be asking about, that I've experienced, is that it's just different now. It's just not a fair comparison comparing your Generation Z experience to these past people. It's not at all fair. It's like being it's like being a Vietnamese lady and wondering why you can't play basketball like a black guy. You know, don't set that up as your metric. It's not good. And the other thing that's distorting it is social media, which is going to be the apex fallacy. You will see the thing that makes it, that can trick you, is you will see other people seemingly having these kinds of experiences online. But this is subject to what is called the apex fallacy, which is pretty much looking at the top. Only looking at, I was about to do a Jordan Peterson impression again. I do that shit all the time. I need to find it. I need to find something else. But you're only looking at the top, 20% or whatever. While there's all these other people not at all posting on social media, or rarely posting on social media without a large presence. Be more. Let me get back into it. I almost messed up this whole dang recording over a little stutter. That ain't gonna happen to Gerbert. The twink ain't gonna stop, bitch. These people aren't gonna have a social media presence because their life is boring, and that's most people. So your perspective is being skewed not only by, let's say, like the past fallacy, the boomer fallacy, but also the social media apex fallacy. You know what I'm saying, Holmes? And that's what's causing all this mental turmoil, because you're just having these unfair comparisons that aren't real, dog. You know? So that's why, like, you should just calm down about it. It's not like your future's over, I don't think. I'm not going to act like nothing is lost there. But I'm just telling you about acceptance, because you can't change the past. And also, this isn't just about high school. You know, even if you go to college, you might just be like, you might have this same experience, but you're just delaying it 4 years. You know, you get to the end. And this whole situation where you're around all these young people and there's this propinquity, all that's gone. And now you're I guess, in the real world, and now you're atomized. That happens that happens when you're out of school in general, whether that be after you graduate high school or college. But yeah, I just want to talk about acceptance, because that's what it is. You can't change the past, and your comparative frameworks are just no longer favorable to you at all. They're not normal. They're not natural. And it's not really even cope. Like, most people don't date in high school now. So it's just acceptance. But there are some brutal things about it. Before you accept it, it is important to kind of swallow the whole situation of what's going on, because these things will come up in your head every once in a while. And one of the brutal things about it is sort of the gap between women and men socially, and like the experiences they have, and between like normal men and, let's say, like exceptional men, normal and below normal men and exceptional men, and the difference between men and women. We've seen that there's twice as many single young men as there are single young women now. This is Pew Research. That's a crazy stat, by the way, and I'm going to talk about that more in a video I'm writing for the main channel, but that's so wild. But we see that this 2-to-1 ratio. And of course, a part of this is that there are, a few men at the top of the dominance hierarchy. I cannot contain myself. Slob on my knob. There are a few men at the top of the dominance hierarchy that are hogging on the poon. They're just macking all the puss, man, and it's ridiculous. That's not entirely what's happening, but it is a little bit. Like there are a few men that are having these experiences in general, and the rest aren't. And you see this big gap between men and women. So if you're one of these late bloomers, you don't date in high school, you don't really have you don't go to prom or do any of this stuff. But then, in your 20s, let's say you're finally grown up. Now you're ready. Now you're like, okay, high school wasn't for me, but that's true for a lot of guys. There have always been late bloomers, always been guys who haven't dated in high school, and who are just, they come into their ugly ducklings. They bloom into a beautiful butterfly into their 20s. Let's say you're one of those people, or you find some confidence in your 20s. By then, you know what I mean? You're going to sit across from a girl that's around your age, unless you want to date a teenager, which is like, I guess you could, but there's less of them. There's going to be less of them because less and less people are being born, and also there's a little bit of a social stigma there. Let's say you sit across from someone around your age. The gap in experience, if you're going to go on a date, is you may as well be living in two different worlds. She's already got 7 deadly exes. And this would be one thing if you had this experience too. You know what I mean? If you're both had a detailed dating history, but you found this connection, maybe you could work out. Not impossible. But what's brutal about it is you don't. There's an imbalance. You ain't even Scott Pilgrim, because Scott Pilgrim wasn't even an incel. He was low-key, I think he was pimping in that movie, if I remember correctly. Which, I mean, he looked kind of strange, but it's fiction. We can give it a pass. You ain't Scott. You barely have a dating history, and you're sitting across from this woman who's well-traveled. This woman who's been around the block. She's seen Terry, she's seen Barry and Larry. And, you can only imagine. You don't know what any of that's like. This is your first rodeo. And that's unfortunate. That creates a real skewed perspective. So that is the brutal thing about it. Still want to talk about acceptance. Still want to be like, you can't change it. And there are still, going to be women your age. They're going to be less. Obviously going to be less. This is empirically true. But there are going to be other people like you who maybe refrained or maybe were other late bloomers or something like that. So there's still people out there, but just a lot less of them. And definitely not the whole thing where there's someone out there for everyone. That's like numerically false. Men outnumber women in Western countries. And also the dating ratio is 2 to 1. And also if you're looking for someone who has your relative dating experience, that becomes that just becomes worse and worse as you age. So, real bummer. So that's when you might start to think about the past, start wanting to go back and, that's how you know it's brutal. I had these fantasies just after I graduated. Didn't even have a graduation, just over Zoom. Didn't even, because mine got cut off by the quarantine, which is, that's just a little cherry on top of the nut platter. But after I started having these copes, these fantasies, daydreams, going back in time, starting high school again. But even then, these have the contingency that I'm going back with my current body. Because if I were to go back with my past setup, even knowing what I know now, if I were to go back with my past setup, being, a little twink boy, I could parse the universe's all the multiverses like Doctor Strange, and there would be an infinitesimally small chance that that would be a fun time for me. Even if I ran it back a million times in all the different circumstances. So, if I had my setup that I had, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's about all I wanted to talk about, I suppose. Stay blessed.